What up, everybody? I'm gonna start off like this. In OG Power, Kanan said this about Tariq several times. He said he's born gangster. He's born gangster. He's born gangster. It's in him. The kid's a born G. And in Power Season 5, Kanan is talking to Ghost as they're starting to reconcile their relationship, sitting in the car, talking about Tariq. I think he was trying to get Ghost to let Tariq get into the game. And he said this about Tariq to Ghost. He said, the kid's a born G, cold-blooded, colder than you were at that age. And then he said this about Ghost, and you were the meanest little ma that I ever met. So Tariq was colder than even Ghost was as a kid. And Kanan said Ghost was the meanest kid he ever met. So out of all the kids Kanan ever met, Ghost was the meanest. Talking about Tommy Egan, Ghost, Kanan probably himself, Jukebox, and probably maybe even possibly Breeze, depending on what age I'm gonna get into. Kanan met Breeze. So if you looking back when we first met Tariq in the first couple seasons in Power, we could never think that Ghost was knowing how he turned out, we wouldn't think that Tariq was harder than somebody like colder than somebody like Ghost. But in life in general, especially in the game, nobody is a finished product. There's a sequence of events that kind of turn somebody into what they become, whether that's life or the game, especially the game, because no one goes into the game basically hard as you see some of them people in Power as Kanan or whatever, because we see how Kanan is in raising Kanan compared to how he was in Power. So nobody's a finished product. Everybody always changing into the person they're going to one day become. And we even seen Tariq kind of, when we seen him develop and take that leap as a character, when he getting kind of harder. We seen that in Ghost Season 1, the finale, when Tasha got out of jail and she's all nervous trying to pack Tariq's stuff real quick, saying they gotta leave, and she said, Tommy's a killer. He said, and he says, Mom, I'm a killer. And then the couple scenes later, you see Tariq leaning on Tommy Egan's car with 50 Cent's Many Men playing as Tommy Egan walks out of Cash's place. And that's when you kind of knew Tariq was the man now. When you saw Tariq leaning on that car, you knew something was different. You knew he was on another level than what he had been before when you seen that scene. And I'm gonna stick with Tommy Egan, talking about that people being born gangster like Tariq, and how not everybody is. It's especially, even when you are, you still got to grow into the character or whatever. Tommy Egan, Kate Egan said this about Tommy and Ghost in a conversation with Holly. She said that Tommy Egan got jumped by two guys after school one day, but Ghost took care of him, because Ghost was the meanest kid Kanan ever met. But obviously Tommy probably wasn't. But after that, Ghost took care of those two kids so good that nobody ever messed with Tommy again. So Tommy was getting picked on and bullied. So that's part of his story about how he became who he became. And then later on, after that, he became a bouncer, then the corner boy, then everything we've seen him become in Power and in Force. So that gets me to Famous Season 1 in Raising Kanan, we met Famous as a rapper. You know, and Jukebox was a singer. He kind of had a little crush on Jukebox, but not really. Just kind of messed with her, flirted with her a lot. And he was under his older sister Jessica's wing and guidance for basically the duration of in the studio with Crown and everything. He was either with Kanan hanging out, or he was with his older sister. And there was even a scene when Kanan said that Famous was not built for the streets. Famous is not built for the streets. There was a scene where his Uncle Marvin had given him a quarter, of soft or something like that, and he went to sell it on near a college campus or something like that. I can't remember exactly where he was at, but Famous ran off and went to freestyle with some other kids, leaving Kanan to go get off the powder on his own. So they said in season 1, we clearly see that Famous isn't built for the streets. But like I've said, I'm gonna go back and say it before I move on. We become this over time in the game. Nobody, I could say, when they first get into the game, and even if somebody who says, like Tariq, who says, I'm gonna get into the game, Ghost teach me the life, and he was just hard pressed. He had no reason to want to get into the life because he had all the privileges of the nice schools and everything else. But since he was in, he wanted to get into the life. But guess what? Even as cold as Tariq is, according to Kanan, and I know that Tariq is cold-blooded because I've already did another video comparing Tariq and Kanan at the same age, and just comparing how much more tactical and harder that Kanan was compared to Kanan. But yeah, so it takes becoming time, and especially in the game, once you get into, well, let me say this, let me backtrack, but we see that Tariq, he wasn't, even as hard as he wasn't prepared for everything that was going to take place once he got into the life. We've seen in the last season, he's just like his father, trying to find his way out now. He's trying to go legit, just like Ghost was trying to go legit. But once you have been in part of that life for a period of time, it's a part of you, and there is no return. And we're seeing even Famous getting into, I'm gonna get ahead of myself, we're seeing him get into a point of no return at this point, especially once you get into the life. Every day looking over your shoulder for police, for jack boys, even the possibility of being killed by someone. They said it in season 1 of Raising Kanan. Everyone is in the game. You cannot trust anyone. And we saw that from the most recent episode of Raising Kanan, that Cartier Farid learned a hard lesson. When you get into the game, you have a target on your back, living every day with a target on your back. And even if you try to become a better person, like Ghost and Marvin is trying to do, and we've seen, I'm not saying that it's impossible, when you can be far removed from the game, like Ghost is now after he's faked his death and he's living in Cancun or something, enjoying the beach with Ramona somewhere. Move on there. You still got to deal with the PTSD. You still got to deal with the nightmares of the life and in the game. So let me see what I want to get to next. I say, okay, let me get into Famous now, season 2. I talked about him season 1 as a kid, innocent kid. Is anybody really innocent though as a kid? But anyway, innocent kid. Now we see season 2 starts. Kanan gets back from Virginia, I think is where he was at with his mom's friend, or wherever he was staying within Virginia. And Famous is now stealing money from his mom to buy weed. So not a big deal, but he's stealing the money regardless to buy weed, to support his weed habit. I mean, I smoke weed every day, all day long. I have a weed habit too. Probably a lot of us do. I'm not saying it's a big deal, but he was stealing somebody's money, his mom's money, to buy his weed, regardless. So after that, we see Famous getting kicked out of his mom's house for having a girl in his room. And his mom puts him out. His sister Jessica tries to save him. She tries to get Kanan to get in there to wake him up, but he has passed out cold. So he gets kicked out for having the girl in his room. And his mom also knew he was stealing money to buy his weed. So he spends a few nights homeless after that, sleeping in a homeless shelter by yourself as a young 16-year-old, 17-year-old. He might be a year older than Kanan. He seems bigger than Kanan at this point. Might be older. He might be Jukebox's age. I don't know. Around Kanan's age. Nonetheless, 15 to 17 years old, sleeping a week or so in a homeless shelter. And some of y'all may say this while y'all talking about y'all be the first ones to say, oh no, Famous is too soft to be Breeze. But some of y'all are still in your 20s and 30s living at home with your mom, and those are y'all probably the main ones getting in the comments saying Famous too soft to be Breeze. That kid had to spend a week at a homeless shelter as a teenager by himself. By that itself, that's gonna cause a little bit of hardening done to you. Okay, that's gonna get a little bit changed going on with you. Okay. He tries to sell. He was a rapper. He has dreams of being a famous, big-time rapper and being the next, I would say Lil Baby, but you know, Lil Baby wasn't back in 1992. He's being the next LL Cool J. But when he goes to sell his when he goes and sells his tapes on the corner, nobody buys his tapes. The cops stop him and Kanan, and they dump all his tapes on the ground. They make fun of him. They even make fun of his nickname, Famous. So after that, what happens? Kanan steals some crack from his family, and Famous and Kanan go on the street corner, and they hustle up enough money to, with Crown's help, get Famous a place. So Famous sees that, you know, crime kind of pays a little bit. If he could get some drugs to sell, shoot, he can make some money off this stuff, and he can pay his rent and not have to worry about being evicted all the time or sleeping in the homeless shelter no more. He asked after they finish selling all the crack, he asked Kanan if they can keep it up, but Kanan doesn't want to keep stealing from his family. After that, Kanan gets robbed. Him and Kanan pull a home invasion. Kanan beats the brakes off of Freddy, and while they are fleeing the scene of the crime, they're running, and Kanan goes to jail. I'm gonna stay at this scene for a minute. Famous witnessed Kanan doing this, but he was definitely shook. He was not ready. He didn't know Kanan was gonna beat Freddie down like that, but he did learn. He might not be the smartest tool, sharpest tool in the toolbox, or however you say it, the sharpest, whatever, he's the smartest kid, but he does listen. He's like a sponge. He listens to a lot of things. So he did hear Kanan tell him that if he beat Freddie down like that, Freddie will think twice before coming back at him. And we saw that in the pizza shop, that held down to be true. Freddie saw Kanan and he looked like he wanted to do something, but Kanan was nice and relaxed, said, "What you gonna do?" And Freddie kept it moving. But anyway, he got arrested in that scene, but you won't see him squealing like Sam when he got in jail, talking about he knows information. "I didn't do it. Let me tell you, I know who really did this. I was just there. I just saw what happened." He ain't doing none of that. He held it down like a G. He was freestyle rapping in jail. So shoot, I've been to jail, I've been to prison, juvenile, all that. And he would have fit in well with any jail I've ever been to, because that's what we did. We freestyle rap. So he would fit in real well with jails I've been to. And I'm gonna say this: that's the only time we saw Famous rap this entire season. So that dream is kind of fading away from him the older he gets. Other than a few bars that he did spit for Lulu when he asked to get back into the studio. He did spit a quick freestyle to a beat Lulu was working on. Okay, so that gets me up to where we're at right now. He gets the threat of the eviction, and the main thing you hear him saying is he's not gonna go back to the homeless shelter. Right? He ain't going back to the homeless shelter. So out of desperation, after he gets the idea from the pizza shop, he sees Freddie getting some pizzas while he's begging for just a slice of pizza from Kanan. He sees Freddie in there getting 3 big old pizzas, and Kanan tells him, "When you're grimy like Freddie, you keep money." And he got the epiphany that he need to be grimy like Freddie. But the mistake he made, because we know he ain't too smart, is that he went to go and rob the grimiest that he knew, Freddie. Instead of starting off low, let me go rob somebody like from my grade who I know I could probably beat up if it came down to it. I don't have to fight who I know who don't carry a gun. But he went to rob Freddie, who carries a gun and who is already the grimiest dude they know. So they just show he ain't too smart. But Freddie pulls the gun. Famous shoots. He tries to reach again. Famous shoots 3 more times, and he catches a body. And I want to before I move on from this, I want to notice that now Freddie did reach. It looked like he tried to reach. He might have tried to reach for his gun after being shot the first time. But the end of season 1, Kanan, after shooting Detective Howard, he was so shook he was not able to make the other shot to the chest and the shot to the head like his mom instructed him to do, as we saw her doing the most recent episode of Cartier. Right? Kanan was too shook. Famous, he didn't think twice about shooting them other 3 shots. Pop, 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 and then he ran off. So he was not shook. That's saying something right there. That's saying something right there. I want to just tell you that. Okay, moving forward. They've been hitting at a name change for Famous since I think it was episode 2 of this second season of Raising Kanan, where they were selling the mixtapes. The cops made fun of it. They roasted him for his name, Famous out here in the streets trying to sell his tapes and everything else. They really were roasting him for that name. Even Sam, the crackhead, was making fun of that his rap name, Famous. They call him Famous, but I've never heard of him. So people been making fun of his nickname for a minute. And now, since Freddie said his name in the hallway a couple times, and we probably have a witness that heard that name being said, it's time for Famous to officially transform into Breeze. Now that he done caught his first body, right? He ain't Famous no more. He gotta be Breeze. So he goes from his rap name, Famous, to his street name, Breeze. Okay? Okay. Now let me get into this. This is the question I had about Famous. But then I have to just answer it myself, right? Because by what they say in Power, Breeze was the actual... Kanan ran things, but Breeze was the actual boss, is what I kind of got out of Power. And we got to ask, how could Famous at some point become the boss, or some kind of... I mean, they were partners, but it sounded like Breeze was the one who was the actual connect. The actual kingpin was Breeze. And you could actually ask yourself, how could Famous become the kingpin and Kanan be working for him, right? But let me teach you something about this game. It is not about who is the toughest or the strongest. It's not football or martial arts or UFC. It's about who is the one who is connected. See, you could be able to beat me down, bigger, stronger than me, tougher, colder, more savage, and everything than me. But I could still be a boss in the game, way higher up than you. Just because I got a connection that you don't have. So even if you killed me, unless you got a better connection than me, you're only cutting your own hands off by killing me. So that's how someone who you might not expect could actually become a kingpin over someone who you would expect, because they have the connection. So Kanan perhaps might lose his connections through his family, and somehow Famous stumbles up on a plug. Next thing you know, he's the boss, man. He's the kingpin. That's how it works in the streets. The one with the connect, they're higher. The better connect you have, the higher up you are. Okay. All right, moving a couple things to look at about, Famous being kind of not too smart. Ghost said this about Breeze in Power the first time Tariq questioned Ghost about Breeze killing Breeze, and Ghost like, how you know about this? And I think Dre was the one who told him or something. I don't know, but he basically Tariq made up a lie. I think he might have said Kanan told him, but either way, Ghost got frustrated and he was like, Breeze was an idiot. He was gonna get us all killed. So Ghost called Breeze an idiot. Now we do find out in season 6 of Power, close to the finale, that Ghost did love Breeze, but Breeze was standing in the way of Ghost's future, so he had to do what he had to do. But the initial reaction he had, that he said about Breeze, was straight up that he was an idiot and he won't get them all killed. Also in Power, Kanan said Breeze was strong but not smart. He had the same routine every day. He watched Jeopardy, and a lot of us thinking that Breeze must have been smart because he watched Jeopardy. But Kanan also said this about Breeze: he watched Jeopardy because he loved Alex Trebek, not because he loved the show so much, like answering the questions, but he loved Alex Trebek. Okay, all right. So Another couple more rundowns before I finish this video up. Just about Breeze, who Breeze is. Season 2 of Power, when Kanan first got out of jail, talking about Rolla, how he said Ghost up to kill Rolla, and he said that Rolla used Ghost playbook, taking out the boss the same way Ghost took out Breeze. Season 3 of Power, is how we learned how Kanan says he lived in the building next door, in the building next to the building Breeze lived at, and said that's when he said, you know, everything about Jeopardy, and Ghost came in, broke into his place, and shot Breeze in the back of the head while he wasn't paying attention, while he's watching Jeopardy. Season 4 of Power, Tariq tells Andre that his dad, Kanan, and his uncle Tommy ran drugs for a man named Breeze. That's saying, definitely was telling us Kanan was in charge over the operation, but Breeze was the kingpin, the one with the plug. He didn't have to do all the work because he was the connect, so he let Kanan, Tommy, and Ghost do the work for him. Okay, and the final thing they said about him, I already got to that, was Ghost. He got in the way of Ghost's future. So there you have it. Famous turning into Breeze. But I can say this, that the apartment that Famous is currently living in is not the apartment that Kanan goes to in Power, and he says that is Breeze's apartment, because Breeze's apartment had a stairwell next to it, and it was apartment 5D. And in Raising Kanan, Famous lives in a beat up apartment building. The place Breeze lived in was actually pretty nice. The place Famous lives in is kind of beat up apartment, and he lives in apartment like 402, 403, something like that. So definitely not the same, but of course once he gets money, he could definitely move into a nicer place. That would definitely make sense. So there you have it, the theory for Famous being Breeze, part 7. And you know, they say 7 is the perfect number or whatever. So this might be the final video. Finally might have got it. They might, because they said they're going to reveal it the next episode. Might be Famous, might be Unique, might be Detective Howard, might be Ghost's dad. Leave your theory in the comment